Hi, thanks for clicking and thanks for watching. It's a Friday night. I've had a hard work week doing various physical and mental activities, and I finally got a chance to watch one of my favorite channels, Wranglerstar. I've been a subscriber to him for about 2 years now. And, this video that I saw that he posted about this, what was it? Lumbersexuals, yeah. It really struck a deep personal chord with me, and especially because he frequently references goths as somehow congruent with the lumbersexual fad. I mean, right there, I got to take issue with that. I guess I'll get into that in a bit, but before you, before you click off by taking a look at me and my bachelor pad here, before you just decide that I'm not worth listening to, I should pretty strongly and emphatically establish that I have been swinging an axe for about 20 years now. And I do consider myself a woodsman of sorts, not a lumberjack. In fact, the notion of calling yourself a lumberjack when you haven't actually been in the profession of being a lumberjack and being paid to be a lumberjack is in and of itself rather asinine to me. And I should state up front that this whole lumbersexual movement fad thing as a label and as a thing in and of itself is pretty asinine. But the reason why I'm making this video is because up front I gotta say, please don't make the mistake of assuming that because somebody looks as though they are trying to fit into a fad or a label, that's actually what they're trying to do. In other words, don't misjudge the depth and breadth of somebody's interest in something. There now exists this label, lumbersexual. The label hipster, the label emo, the label, what was the other one? What was the other one that I've had misapplied to me that disgusts me? Well, there's a few. They all just are an injustice. They do not respect the fact that the person you are applying those labels to might not actually be trying to apply those labels to themselves. I must admit, there are going to be people out there, probably now, I guess, a growing and large and pathetic population of young, upper middle class white males who are lumbersexuals by choice, with their plastic handled axes, and they really don't have any bushcrafting skills, and they have next to no homesteading skills. But please don't assume that because somebody looks as though they are trying to be part of that fad, that they are. As a matter of fact, fads come from somewhere, right? Facebook pages devoted to a label and Twitter hashtags that use a label wouldn't exist unless there was an antecedent. The antecedent is people with a depth and breadth of interest, in this case, in bushcraft and homesteading. And those fads and labels sprung up out of the fact that there are certain people like me who have been very interested and very energetic in cultivating the skill of bushcrafting and the skill of homesteading for a long time. And there's certain stereotypical hallmarks of the lumbersexual, which I by some kind of sick coincidence happen to meet. Like, I have a beard now. The irony of this is that I have a beard because I'm tired of people giving me short shrift because they think I'm younger than I actually am. I grew a beard because I'm fed up of people thinking that I'm in my 20s or even like in my late teens. It happens. I actually get carded for cigarettes occasionally. I actually get asked for ID for cigarettes occasionally. That's just a quirk of genetics, that I actually am a middle-aged man, but I look like I'm in my 20s. So I grew a beard because I'm tired of getting a short shrift. Unfortunately, in Wranglerstar's video, I see implicit in that him giving certain people a short shrift. I'm not sure. That's going a little bit too far, maybe. But what can happen when there now exists a label that certain misguided and rather pathetic people are trying to live up to is that you will now assume that the people that you meet and have some superficial interaction with are also trying to live up to that label. And you might be wrong about that. Okay? I want to establish that, yeah, like I said, I've been swinging an axe for 20 years now. I'm a Canadian, so I guess that gives me some sort of lumbersexual cred right off the bat. But I had the great fortune to be exposed to the wilderness and woodsmanship and homesteading and bushcraft at a very young age. And when I say that, that seems to imply that I wouldn't be into those things if I wasn't exposed to them. But as a matter of fact, there's an antecedent to this. I was always interested in kind of getting away from the norm, kind of getting away from urban culture, because it sickened me so much with the way it imposes certain values and certain labels. I've always been fed up with it for as long as I can remember, since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Becoming self-reliant and building and cultivating the skills of woodsmanship are just one side of that coin of my disgust with the general status quo, the general sheeple sort of society that we live in. And now I have to bring this up because Wranglerstar did, oddly. That's what goth is about too. In a weird way, in the way that Stephen Colbert kind of makes fun of the Republicans by pretending to be one, that sort of ironic, derisive laughter is what being a goth is about. That's another video that has to come up later, but the point I'm trying to make is that being a goth and being a lumberjack or lumbersexual, in both cases can be premised upon an already deep-seated sort of intrinsic interest in something. In the case of goth, it is probably a somewhat unhealthy focus on death. And in the case of being a bushcrafter or a homesteader, it is I would assert, healthy focus on being self-reliant. And both of those things display a kind of disenfranchisement with the status quo. Lumbersexuals clearly are an aspect of the status quo, as Wranglerstar so rightly points out, because we live in a world where traditional sexual roles have been virtually outlawed. And it's socially unacceptable to be a woman who wants to actually have a family and have a baby. And it's socially unacceptable to actually be a man who wants to use his muscles and to sort of do traditional things like chop down trees and, you know, hunt. Oh, God forbid. God forbid you should want to be a hunter. But anyways, The real crux of this video, the real reason why I'm making it, is because it terrifies me to think that Wranglerstar and people like him that I thank the gods for every day that you exist and that you're on YouTube and that I can cultivate my knowledge and build my skills of woodcraft and bushcraft and homesteading. When I was younger, it was more about bushcraft. Now that I'm older, it's more about homesteading. But, okay. To think that you guys might dismiss me because you think I'm a lumbersexual, or maybe a goth, a lumber-goth section. I don't know. The labels are so asinine and incoherent, but they are coherent to the majority of people. And unfortunately, to you, Wranglerstar, there's a coherence to the label, which I am just really afraid that you're going to apply to certain people who maybe don't deserve it. I'm just picturing in my mind that there's some social event or something happens where I see you and you see me, and we kind of move into each other's orbit, and I'm talking and you just dismiss me because you think I'm a lumbersexual. Because I have the tattoos, right? And I have a lip ring, and you wouldn't be able to see from talking to me that I have, you know, a proper wooden axe that is not unused, okay? I've used it a lot. And I'm so in love with using my axe that every spring, and when there's a bad snowstorm here, in whatever city I happen to be living in Canada, I put an ad up on Craigslist every winter and every spring. I will do free wood chopping for you. Free. Because I love using my axe. And I've had this bad boy here, this Hultefors. Everybody talks about Grandfors, but I have a Hultefors, Swedish hand-forged axe. And I've been using them for about 3 years now, and you know, I've sharpened it repeatedly and I've put it through its paces, and I'm not a faker, okay? I'm not a lumbersexual, right? And I use this bad boy a little bit more often. That's my cold steel. Yeah, I know people have a low opinion of cold steel, but you know what? This cold steel Norse hawk, I love it. A lot of people don't like it because it sings when you use it, but I actually like that. And I've used this, you know, I've had 3 or 4 years I've had this, and I've used it like gangbusters, okay? Whatever opportunity I can get, I get out into the woods. And whatever opportunity I get, I learn more about being out in the woods. And Wranglerstar's, your channel has helped me do that. And it just saddens me to think that you might think that I'm a lumbersexual or something like that. It's asinine. Or that I'm into this goth thing, and I have been since, since the day I was born. The label does not predate the interest. The breadth and depth of someone's interest in something is not premised on the existence of a label. That's a double-edged sword. That's a double-edged sort of thing to say. So on the one hand, you got your lumbersexuals on this ridiculous Facebook page and all that, which I will not even visit. But amongst them, I bet you there are a few of them who are really worthwhile people who are ready to learn a lot more about bushcrafting and homesteading. And it's kind of unfortunate if we give them a short shrift by saying, oh, well, you're just a lumbersexual. Come on. Let's be a bit more critical about it, right? Please. I'm begging you. Because as a graduate student living in Montreal, you know, some of the stories I can tell about when people come over and they see that I have a tomahawk. Why do you have that? I like to go camping and do bushcrafting. Yeah, but why do you need that to go camping? Because if a piece of wood is wet and you split it, it burns better. Yeah, I guess. It's mind-numbing, okay? I don't want to be relegated to having to justify myself to those people. So please don't also make me justify myself to the people who are teaching me something and who I would love to meet in person and just talk to and just talk about being in stewardship of the land and being self-reliant and just tools and all these good things. Please, let's take the high ground and let's be critical. Yeah, I self-identify as a goth, and I always have, and I always would have even before I found out that there was such a thing as a goth. Goth is probably in my opinion, the worst label or fad that you could draw a comparison to lumbersexuals. Because I think since the late 90s, since the internet became a thing, there haven't been any true cultural movements, any true subgenres. Goth was and still is a true subgenre, a true movement that actually means something existentially, that means something even on a spiritual level, and has for centuries. But after the internet, we had emo. And yeah, and hipsters turned into metrosexuals, right? And people, whatever few people there are like me, though this is probably more common in Canada, people that live in the city but love to get away and practice their skills and be out in the woods. Now we're being called lumbersexuals. Please don't even adopt the phrase. Don't even do it the justice of using it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of pseudo hipsters out there who have problems with their sexuality, as we can all understand, because what man can't help but feel that that masculinity has been criminalized. But if being part of a fad is not criminalized, then being part of a fad that celebrates masculinity is somehow acceptable. Yeah, I get it. That's a thing, and I don't even want to take it on. I'd really rather live in the woods without any contact with the outside than engage with the perverse, distorted way that modern society takes on gender issues. The way that modern society makes gender an issue where it really wasn't before. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about it. Thanks for watching. And, and if you would like to hear this brown guy talk more about being a bushcrafter and being a goth and being an intellectual and being a grad student, though as long as I'm a grad student, I probably won't be making too many videos, then please subscribe. Thank you.